Hello and welcome to this episode of Run a Profitable Gym. I am your host for this session. My name is John Franklin. I'm the CMO here at Two Brain Business. And joining me today is the head of sales at Two Brain Business and the owner of Vault Health and Performance, a network of 4 different gyms doing over 7 figures of revenue. It's his first time on the show. Welcome, Mr. Matt Temby.
Hey, thanks for having me, John.
Were you always a sales expert, or was this something you picked up through the annals of being a gym owner?
No, I was terrible in sales. I come from a corporate background in retail, and then opened my first 2 gyms at the same time, which was a big mistake. And then kind of stumbled through sales until eventually I found mentorship. And then I learned that I should actually have a sales process. It's a lot easier to make money that way.
And the story of how you found mentorship is kind of a dramatic one. How did you get on my radar? How did you find Two Brain Business?
Yeah, I didn't know that Two Brain existed. A lot of people that come to have conversations with Two Brain, they've been following for a really long time. They're familiar with Chris's work. I was not in that camp. I was coming out of COVID. It was July of 2020. I had opened both of my gyms in 2018, left my corporate role in 2019. So I didn't have any money coming in for about 16 months. And I was about 12 weeks out from filing bankruptcy. I'd missed a flight to a cousin's wedding out to Kansas City, cried all day. My mom told me that everything was going to be okay. And I assured her it was not okay. And then I found a paid ad from Two Brain that night, kind of went down the rabbit hole, started reading some articles, watched some videos, listened to the podcast. I had a call on a Monday and I started that day. And that was about 4 years ago.
I gotcha. That was my ad. All right. And so things have obviously turned around since then. The way you came on my radar is obviously you had a lot of success with the program. And then I was looking for people who had succeeded and wanted to hop on the sales team. I found you. We interviewed the first time and you didn't get the job. You didn't sell me. You didn't close me. So we ended up bringing you on a second round. I saw a little bit of opportunity there. I saw you were coachable and moldable, and then you came on. You blew my expectations away, and now you run the entire sales team, and you're a better closer than I am. So how did you go from someone who couldn't get a part-time sales job to being the number 1 sales expert in an organization known for selling?
Yeah, I think, when I first started on the sales team, and rightfully so, I didn't get the job the first time. I didn't do a very good job of closing you. When I first started, it was about creating structure and having a format that I could follow consistently and a flow that I was confident in, because with sales, if you don't have confidence and conviction, the person across from you is going to feel that, regardless of if you're selling mentorship or, for most of the people that are going to be listening to this episode, we're selling to consumers that want to change their life through health and fitness coaching. So if they are timid and they're scared, which most of them are, when they get to sitting across from us and we're timid and not confident, they're not going to buy. So it was about building my confidence with what was working well for me. And then since that time, beginning of 2022, I've invested in mentorship for sales training. So, if there's a skill that you want to learn, there's somebody out there that's doing it better than you are, and you can acquire that skill.
Yeah. I mean, it got to the point where I was just like, Matt, I've kind of taught you everything I know now. And so you're just like, okay, that's fine. And then you found people who were better than me and then better than those people. And now you've gotten really good in such a short period of time. It's really impressive. So, mentorship was one thing you did. Obviously, selling with conviction and developing a good sales mindset is important. Like, what did you do to hone in on those things and develop those abilities?
Yeah, so part of it is practice, and then reviewing game tape is really helpful. So a lot of the sales that we do at Vault is all online. It's through Zoom. So those are recorded. It gives me the opportunity to watch those conversations that the team is having and give feedback to team members on things that they can either do better in discovery phase, which is the first part of actually leading a sales conversation, which I'm sure we'll talk about more in a minute. The pitch, which is like presenting the solution. Here at Two Brain, we call that the prescriptive model, and then the close, which is overcoming objections. If you can't overcome objections, you're not going to make a lot of money in sales or in your gym because you're not going to have a lot of people that you're going to be helping. Something that you had actually shared not that long ago within Two Brain is called the Jolt effect. And in that book, they talk about 40 to 60% of people don't make decisions on the thing that they're looking at. So if you think about how many people actually show up, they say, hey, I need to think about it, or I need to talk to my partner about this. And then they just go back home and sit on the couch. That's the true competition for other gyms. Those people that come into your gym for no sweat intro, they're not signing up at F45 or Orange Theory. They're just going back to the couch.
Some of them are, but to your point about half, maybe a little bit more, are just going to do nothing. So that's why it's something that I stress with you, and now you stress with the team, that it is important to get a commitment of some kind on a sales call, because it's what the prospect wants to do. But a lot of times there's indecision, and that may be because they've been burnt by a company before, or they don't know if they're ready to commit in the case of like a gym membership, or they don't know if this is the right gym. And we need to help them realize that whatever the solution is you are selling is the right solution. So why don't we run through some of the frameworks that you teach at your gym to help create strong closers? Yeah,
so it starts at the beginning of that sales conversation. So it's really about overcoming the person, because that person, typically the people that we're servicing within our gyms, our avatar is somebody that does not work out regularly or has never had a workout program before. So by the time they're actually sitting in front of us, they're fairly intimidated. This is like uncharted territory for them, but we want to just get right into it. And we have to make sure that we're leading the person, because they're going to make a decision on if they want to work with us specifically or not. So asking what they're looking for specifically in terms of their health and fitness is a great spot to start the discovery phase. Anything that a prospect is going to share with you, or potential client's going to share with you, you want to make sure that you clarify what they said. So you don't want to make assumptions, right? So they might say, hey, I want to get healthy. All right, well, in my mind and in your mind, you might have a picture of what healthy looks like, but we don't know what it actually means to them. So we need to clarify what that is. We might need to probe and ask follow-up questions. And then once we understand what they're actually talking about, then we can build, because if that specifically is why they're here, there's probably more to it. And so we need to start to build that story of what brought them in front of us, how long this thing has been going on for, what they've tried to do to solve that in the past. And then ultimately what will happen from that discovery portion of the conversation is that you're going to end up finding a lot of pain, typically, because people are trying to solve a problem. And then the larger that gap gets, the more urgency that they will have. But there's really 3 parts to discovery. So the first part to discovery is really understanding what the problem is, which is, why we just ask that as soon as we start. The second part is understanding the goal. What's the future state for this person? What's the thing that they desire? And then the last piece is urgency. And there's really kind of 2 pieces to urgency. The first part is cost of inaction. So let's just use a female avatar who's in her mid 40s and she wants to lose body fat. So if she wants to lose 25 pounds and she's been trying to lose this 25 pounds for the last 3 years, and there's probably a lot of things like little comments from her partner, or the way that she looks in the mirror before she goes out to a birthday party with the girls, these little things kind of chip away at her confidence over time, and it's probably created a lot of pain in her life. And so the cost of inaction of okay, you lose the 25 pounds. How are you feeling? She's feeling awesome. She's got more energy, and she just kind of has that kick in her step again. Well, what happens if she does nothing? It's just going to continue to get worse, because the track record over however many years it's been since she's wanted to solve this problem, it would be unreasonable for her to think that it's just going to magically solve itself. So we have to paint the picture of okay, this is the thing you want, and then you have to rip it away. And we're not doing that to be rude. We're not doing it to be disrespectful or mean. We just have to bring them back to the reality of the situation that they're currently in. You're doing nothing, and it's your decision to do nothing. Or maybe she's done other things and she's either failed to execute, or it was the wrong program with not the right information, or lacked implementation and accountability to actually get her the thing that she wanted. So once there's urgency where somebody is raising their hand and saying, I understand that it's my fault that I'm here, whether it's decisions I was consciously aware of or unconsciously aware of, they were still my decisions, and I am in control of this, and nobody's going to come to save me, and nobody's going to do this for me. At that point, Once they've committed to taking action and changing their behavior, which is what sales truly is, then you can go into the pitch, but not before then, because you're going to end up with a think about it, or you're going to end up with a partner objection that's going to be hard for you to overcome if you haven't led them to the point where they take accountability.
Right. So we have what's the problem, what's the desired goal or outcome, and then we need to create that urgency. One of the things that I've heard you talk about is the depth of questioning is what creates that urgency. If you stay surface level, you get surface level answers. So a lot of times when you will be sitting down for a consultation in your gym and you ask someone a question, they'll say something pretty generic, like I want to lose weight, or I want to get healthy, or I just want to feel a little better. And so if you're a novice salesperson, you'll just kind of go down the script and kind of get a check next to each one of those boxes. What I think separates someone who's good and who's great is who can kind of like dig it and figure out what the true source of the pain, what the true source of the problem is. What are some tips you have for doing that?
Yeah, you really have to kind of peel back the onion until you get to the spot where there's pain. So, we'll just go back to that same avatar. She comes in, she says that she wants to get healthy and feel confident again. Okay, well, tell me a little bit more about what that looks like for you to feel healthy and feel confident again. Well,
let's just role play it. You can take me through.
Do you want to be the?
Yeah, I just want to lose like 20 pounds.
Okay, got it. 20 pounds. And how long have you been wanting to lose the 20 pounds?
So I had a kid about a year ago, and then life's been busy. It's very difficult being a mom and balancing work and my relationship. And so it's been something that I've wanted to do for a long time now, but I just need something to kind of like get me back on the wagon.
Okay. When you say long time, like you said that you had a kid a year ago, like did this desire to lose the 20 pounds start before then?
Well, I was pregnant, so, it wasn't realistic to lose weight at that point in time. But, no one feels their sexiest when they're in their third trimester of pregnancy. So, yeah, it's been a while. I want to have my old body back. My pre-pregnancy body is my goal. I want to fit in like my old outfits and be able to fit in my pre-kid jeans.
Got it. Okay. And so what have you been doing to work on losing the 20 pounds currently?
Honestly, I haven't been doing much. I know it's been something I've needed to change, but it's just been something I've been kicking down the road because, it seems like I've been putting the needs of others before my own needs because I'm busy. I'm a mom. That's what I do.
Got it. Okay. And has something happened recently that you showed up today to have a conversation about finally putting something in place to change that?
My kid is potty trained and they're starting school in 2 months.
Okay. So it sounds like
my oldest. I have 2 kids.
Oh, all right. Well, that's good to know. So it sounds like you have a little bit more freedom of time with the oldest one going off to school. So like you're trying to prioritize yourself to start to lose this weight.
I just have a little breathing room and I can get out of the house for, an hour a couple times a week, where before that just wasn't even a consideration.
Got it. Okay. Now, when you said that you wanted to lose some weight, you said 20 pounds, and it seemed like that was pretty specific. What's the significance behind the 20?
That would just put me at what my pre-pregnancy weight was. Okay.
And were you happy at that weight?
Definitely happier than what I was. Just felt a lot more confident, felt a lot more younger, felt like I had more energy.
Got it. Okay. And so is that like kind of the ultimate goal, or do you think that you would want to do something beyond that once you hit the first 20?
I think I'd have to get there first, but you always want to look better. There's no end state in these things, but I do think getting pre-pregnancy would give me a lot more confidence, make me feel better, give me a better feeling when I look in the mirror.
Got it. Okay. And, I'm just kind of curious, what would happen, because you mentioned that you kind of kicked the can down the road to get to this point that we're at today. What happens if you don't do anything?
I just keep going like I'm going and, could be talking to you next year, having to lose 30 pounds instead of 20 pounds.
Okay. And what is that going to do for your quality of life? Because you said that you wanted to kind of get back to feeling sexier again.
It's certainly not going to improve it.
Okay. And is that something that you're prepared to settle for?
No, I mean, I want to make a change, or I know something needs to change because, this isn't something where I can do it on my own. Like there's too much. I have to keep track of my husband, my 2 children. I work, I just don't have the type of headspace to think of how to make these other changes and habits that I need to get back to where I was.
Okay. And when you say that something needs to change, do you have an idea of what that looks like for you?
I think just moving, getting out of the gym and starting to take time for myself is really going to be that first step in the process.
Got it. Okay. So that's where, like, instead of just taking you at your initial response, you can keep going. And so you get a lot more information from the prospect because that starts to build that gap. And so, like you said, hey, it's my fault. And you took accountability. So, like, you're a good prospect, somebody that's probably going to be a little bit easier to close of, hey, I know that something needs to change. That's kind of why I'm here. And I know that if I don't do anything, this is going to get worse. And I'm probably going to have like 10 more pounds that I need to ask your help to lose next year.
And it doesn't feel pushy, and it only took like a couple extra minutes to get that information, but you have a lot more to work with to fight inaction later on, right?
For sure. Yeah. If you settle for the surface responses, you are just going to be checking boxes on the conversation, and you're not going to have the opportunity to change that person's life. And at the end of the day, this isn't about making more money. From a business perspective, obviously, like, that's important. But this is really about changing somebody's life in your community. And if you're not a leader at the beginning of the conversation, that person is never going to say, hey, I want you to lead me on a daily basis, whether it's one-on-one, semi-private, large group, nutrition coaching, whatever. That person's not going to sign up with you because you didn't prove to them that you can lead them at the beginning of the relationship. So they're saying, hey, I'm kind of concerned. I don't have the confidence that you're going to be able to lead me to the thing that I actually want. So they're rejecting you, not like the program that you have.
And what would you say to a gym owner who's like, this doesn't match with the vibe of my gym, or like, I don't like my sales to feel salesy?
What would I say to that person in that regard? I would ask them about their goals to start. Like, what are they trying to do with their business? If they're trying to make a larger impact on their community and they think that they could be doing better. Now, maybe they're doing free trials, which, a lot of gyms used to do that, and a lot of gyms still do that. I would ask them how that's working for them. And if they think that they could be doing better, I'd ask them, like, if they're happy with the results. And if they're not, then I'd say, okay, well, let's talk about a different way that we can actually help people on a deeper level, because I don't know anything about that person that goes into a free class. I don't know what their goals are. I don't know what their limitations are. I don't know what their past workout history is. And so really I'm doing that person a disservice. And a free class at this point is really a commodity. It's no different than just turn on the lights. I expect the light to go on. And so there's no differentiation between what you're doing and what the F45 down the road is doing. And if you have like a really large group model, let's just say you have 20 to 30 people in that room, and you dump Nancy, who's a 65-year-old female who's never worked out with weights before, into that group, she's probably not going to have a good experience. And the likelihood of her getting hurt is actually significantly higher. And the coaching level just goes down because your coach is trying to get that person to have a good experience so that they sign up to the gym, so the gym grows, as opposed to coaching everybody else that's already paying you to reach their goals. So I would encourage you to have a more structured process and understanding like what that leads to in the long term. That person's probably going to pay you more money for other services because you can just address and give them an action plan of, like you said, you wanted ABC. Let's do X, Y, Z to help you get there. This is like the timeline it's going to take, so you can set reasonable expectations, and so that there's not like buyer's remorse, 30 days in when they just think that the 20 pounds is going to melt away, but you didn't walk them through what they should actually expect. So there's a lot of upsides into having a true structured sales process. It's not just about making money. It's about helping that person better.
Right. Like, you can't help Nancy if you don't know what Nancy wants, right? If you're one of those gyms saying like, here's my gym, this is where the rowers, we have a lot of barbells, like our coaches are better than the gym down the street. It costs $140 a month. There are no contracts. There's no hard pitch. Let me know if you want to sign up. Like, again, does that person know you can solve their problem? Have you done anything for that person that leads them to believe that you're an expert? Much less like should command a premium price to solve their problem versus getting a more bespoke solution like this, where you can say, hey, I hear you. I can solve this. We do this all the time. And then providing them exactly what they need. So kudos to that. Once we've gotten the problem. We've kind of painted the dream outcome. What is the next step in the sales process?
Yeah. So at this point, you're gonna make a prescription recommendation. This is what people would refer to as the pitch. And so this is, when we talked about building that gap in the first part of the conversation and discovery, this is building the bridge to get her from this side over here to the side that she wants to be on. And the best way to do this, like if you have a lot of confidence in what you do, less is more. She doesn't need to know about the coaching app that she's going to have access to, or like your functional training day, or all of these other things. She just needs to know, like, hey, we've done this with hundreds of people before, a lot of them very similar to your situation, and this is the outcome. And so based on that and what you said that you're trying to accomplish today, these are the steps I want to take with you for the first 4 weeks. After that, you're going to sit down with my coach and they're going to make the next recommendation for you. So this is the pitch. She understands what's going on. He or she understands what's going on. And then we're going to get to the close.
And does everybody get the same pitch?
No. Everybody's going to get the pitch that's best for them. And so, if you have, in your business, if you have team members that are helping with the sales process, they need to be empowered to do what's right for that person. I've always told my team, if you start seeing me make recommendations that is just like based on money and it's not based in that person's best interest, it's probably time for you to get another job, because the ship has gone astray somewhere along the way.
So you make the pitch. Usually, how will you deliver the end state of the pitch? So I'm assuming you'll walk through like, hey, Nancy, based off of what you told me, I would recommend X, Y, and Z. And then how do you deliver the price and asking them to sign up?
Yeah, so you want to make sure that they believe in the plan. So typically what we do in our gyms, because we do have a nutrition program that an RD leads, we'll kind of break it down into 2 pieces. Like, here's your fitness side of things, here's the nutrition side of things. Even if there's no recommendation for nutrition, we'll just say, hey, based on everything that you've told me that you're trying to accomplish, I don't think that you need nutrition at this point. We just let them know that we do have programs, but at this point, I don't think that it's like imperative for them to go down that path to reach their goals. And then I'm going to ask them for their confidence of like, do you believe that everything that I've presented to you in terms of fitness is going to get you to where you want to be? And they're going to give me a yes or no. I'm going to ask a binary question there. So binary question, just getting clarity of like, it's this or that, it's yes or no. I want, like, you're not asking an open-ended question. She says no. I'm going to ask her what her hesitation is, or where she thinks that we may have left something out, so I can address that, because it's not an objection at this point. It's just like, hey, there's something that's missing and we're having a straightforward conversation. If she says yes, I say great, and then I'm going to walk her through the investment. So a lot of gyms are just going to have like one size fits all of like pricing. What I would recommend is you get a little bit more advanced is actually having 2 different pricing structure. You can have like your paid in full that is not discounted, because that's not something that we teach, but like that's the regular price. And then you have a finance option where it's like, hey, maybe that person can't pay $1,000 to get started for whatever your intro package is. And so then if we isolate that conversation around money, if they have the money and they just don't want to part with all of it at one time, great, I can break that down for you. And so that's how I would deliver that pitch, is like, the investment for you to get started today is going to be this. How do you feel about the investment? And then I let her respond, so that you don't need to have like this big awkward pause. Like some people will teach that where you have like a staring contest and nobody says anything until the other person blinks or coughs. And then like you feel like you got them. You're just gonna get straight to it, because typically if that person wants to do this, then it just comes down to like, do you actually have the money, or are we having a different conversation of finding the finances within your budget? And if they have the money and they just don't want to give it to you, then it's going to be one of the other objections.
So I would guess the most common one that people in here would hear from someone is like, hey, yeah, that sounds good. I think it's going to get me where I need to go. Can you give me a couple of days to think about it? How are we handling that?
Yeah, that's no problem, John. Just before you go away and take some time to think about that, what's coming up for you that is leading you to wanting to take some time to make this decision?
I'm just like not an impulsive person, and I want to make sure that I'm making the right decision for me. I'm just not somebody who signs up for things right on the spot.
Got it. Okay. And, how do you feel about the decision itself? Like, do you feel like this is the right decision that's going to help lead you to losing the 20 pounds that we talked about earlier?
I do, but it's a lot of money. It's a little more expensive than I thought it was going to be coming into the conversation.
Okay. So now we have the real objection. So it's a money objection. It's not a think about it objection. So of the 5 objections, there's 2 that are smoke screens. That's a think about it. That's a partner objection. And then you actually have money, fear, and logistics. Those are the 3 real objections. And so you have to pierce the smoke screen that somebody has of like, hey, I want to talk to my partner about that. Well, if it was a partner thing, then I'd say, yeah, that's not a problem. Like, it's fair to go home and talk to your partner. I'd want to talk to my partner about this as well. Let me just ask you this question before you go away. Like, is there any reason that your partner wouldn't want you to lose the 20 pounds that you shared with me that is really important to you? Then you'd probably
they'd probably say no. And then they'd give you it's a money thing, or we're saving up for a vacation. We want to buy a car or whatever. Or it's like, the kids, I'd have to hire a nanny, something like that. And then it would come down. Then you get to a money one. Okay. What's an example of a fear, because you said something important there. So think about it in partner or smoke screen objections. That is usually something that requires further questioning to get to what the actual issue is. And the 3 real ones are money, which is pretty straightforward. The second one is logistics. So that's like, hey, I told you my kid's starting school in 2 months. I can't start today. Right. Like I just don't have the time until this kid's out the house. Right. Sure. And so for that, how would you handle something like that?
Yeah, logistics is pretty straightforward. So it's like, listen, Susan, you came in today wanting to solve a problem. I understand that your son's starting kindergarten in a couple months. You want to spend those summer months with him, but you also said that you wanted to have more energy so you can actually play with your son this summer. So what do you think about the plan of like breaking this down to just 2 days a week? Originally, we talked about 4 days. So if we reduce the frequency just to get you started, right? Because I don't want you to kick the can down the road and like have the situation be a little bit worse off than you are today. Would that be helpful in helping you take the first steps to get started towards your goal?
And then you just move down that line of questioning until you find something that could work, or, again, you do a follow-up. But you want to make sure that you're exhausting all those avenues first to actually get someone to commit and make some type of a decision.
Yep. All
right. Now talk me through fear. What's a real, like, at what point do you know, fear is the actual objection here?
Sometimes you just have to label it, right? So it would be like, hey, you said that everything is great. Like, this is exactly what you're looking for. You know that you need to do this, but you're not ready to move forward. Do you have a little bit of fear of moving forward? So if we really wanted to go deep dive, there's 4 fears. There's a fear of me, there's a fear of you, there's a fear of yesterday, there's a fear of tomorrow. And like, we could unpack each of those if we really wanted to. But when you're looking at fear, a great question to ask is like, what would you do if you knew that you couldn't fail in this program? Would you still do it? Typically they'd say, yeah, of course. But what if it doesn't work for me? Well, why wouldn't it work for you if it's worked for all these other people that are on the wall behind me? And then they would go through like, well, what if I don't have time, or what if I don't show up, or what if I'm just like not strong enough? And so then you're just like addressing the thing of like, okay, you're fearful of this. And then another good question that you can ask is, or just kind of a statement really, is like, we can either make our decisions based out of fear or despite fear. And the person that you want to be, where like you lose the 20 pounds and like you're back to feeling confident, like what decision do you need to make in this situation to put yourself in position to become that person? And so if we can strip things down to really just like a simple human conversation where we take our emotions out of it, because at the end of the day, my life doesn't change if she signs up. Her life will change significantly if she signs up. If she doesn't sign up, her life won't change. It will probably just kind of continue on the way that it's going. And she probably isn't happy with that, which is why she's sitting in front of you. And this applies for men too. I'm just using Susan as an example.
Speak through that again, because I think that's an important way to think about it. Like some people will hear this and be like, oh, you're just trying to push a decision on this person. But really, you want to act from a position of like indifference, right? Is that the way you want to think about it?
Yeah. So, internally a while back, we used to talk about the be back bus, right? Like the client says, hey, I'll be back, or like, I'll talk to you on Monday. But what we fail to realize is the person that's like trying to lead the situation is that the Be Back bus is a one-way ticket out of town, and you're never going to see that person again. And if you as a gym owner or you as a coach at a gym, if you have conviction in what you do, that like you're the best in your town at X, Y, and Z, you know you can change that person's life, you have to do everything that you can to help that person fight through the fear, fight through whatever they're going through right there, because this is the best opportunity that they have to make a decision that will change their life if you have something that will actually deliver that. So if you are a little bit timid and you're like, oh shoot, like I'm glad that this is going to be over. They're going to be gone. I can go lift some barbells. It's like that person is going to leave. You're never going to see that person again. You might hear from them. They might just pick up and say, hey, I'm not interested, but you can't have a real conversation with them at that point because you're an order taker in conversation number 2. They're saying either yes, or they're saying no, or they're going to say that they need more time. But the only conversation that you have where you can be like transparent and just like face to face is right now. So you have to get over your fear. And if you're fearful, it's probably because you lack the knowledge, skills, and experience to be successful in your role as a salesperson in that moment. And as gym owners, obviously, we're wearing a lot of interchangeable hats, but you have to get really good at this skill set because that person needs you. And you have the opportunity to change their life and probably impact their family's life for, in a positive way, but not if you're afraid and not if you don't have the skills to help them work through that in that moment.
So that runs us through the process and how we get through there. And I think there are some nuggets in there for both novice and advanced salespeople. Earlier in the conversation, you said something that was important, and I want to bring it up on the tail end here. So one of the things we do on the Two Brain sales team is we review calls relentlessly. So we are constantly auditing calls, we are providing feedback, and we are making improvements to the process. You mentioned that you do all of your gym sales calls on Zoom, so you can monitor, audit, give feedback. Is that the only reason you do it on Zoom? And if you're talking to a gym owner who doesn't do it on Zoom, would you recommend moving to a virtual setting so you could get that feedback, or is there another way around that for people who like having people in the gym?
Yeah, we have recently switched to the Zoom process. One, logistically, it's easier. We have a couple specialized team members now that handle the majority of our sales. Sometimes clients or prospective clients will want to come into the building and like check it out, even though we say, hey, like the dumbbells that we have look just like the dumbbells that you've seen in other facilities. They actually work just the same way. But if you really want to come in and see us, we're happy to meet with you in person. And so like just the logistics of getting another coach scheduled sometimes is a little bit clunky, which is why we prefer to do it on Zoom. The other reason I prefer is kind of the point that you just made is I would love to see the conversation with the team members, because if they're not leading with confidence, just like everything that we've talked through, we're probably missing the opportunity to help more people. And then, if you put like a more business focused perspective on it, if you're doing like a lot of organic marketing, and if you're doing paid marketing, like each of those leads that have these conversations cost money. And so like you want to be able to get a profitable return on that. So you want to make sure that you're not just like flushing money down the toilet because your team is either unskilled or they don't have enough reps to be good at the things that you want them to be good at. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. And to answer the last part of your question, sorry for rambling there, is I would encourage other gym owners to be able to do it. If they're like a solopreneur and they don't have anybody else on their team and they go home at lunch and prospects available like in that dead time, great. Like instead of you having to rush back up to the gym, especially if you aren't good at lead nurture, and that person might not show up. Like if your show rate's like 60%, then you might end up at the gym like an hour and a half earlier than you wanted to, when you might have wanted to take a little nap after that. So, doing it on Zoom, there's a lot of pros there. And there's not a whole lot of cons unless somebody actually wants to meet with you in person to make sure you're a real person.
And just to be clear, a lot of people will read Two Brain guides or resources and want to remove themselves from certain tasks in their business. I am of the opinion that sales is the last, if not one of the last to go, for a reason that you mentioned. It's that it is very, very expensive to have a subpar closer on your team. Maybe we can use some math to kind of highlight that. So if Matt and I are working for the same gym, and Matt's close rate is 80% and mine is 70%. And what's the lifetime value of a client at one of your gyms?
Like 4,000.
$4,000. All right.
Yes.
So if Matt delegates all the sales to me, for every 100 sales at a 70% close rate, I'm going to close, or for every 100 sales appointments, I will close 70. Matt will close 80, right? That's that 10% difference in close rate we talked about. The true value to the business is $40,000. So that extra 10% in close rate at a $4,000 lifetime value means that for every 100 sales appointments I do, I cost the gym $40,000 in revenue. So that is the true cost of having a subpar, untrained closer on your team. And it's one of the reasons why I think if you are a gym owner, you have to manage that process for yourself in the beginning. You have to get really good. And then when you do delegate, you have to monitor it really closely, at least in the beginning, until you have someone who is closing at your level, if not a little bit better. Maybe you can talk about how you went about delegating the sales in your gym.
Yeah, so I started, with wearing multiple hats, with having multiple gyms, and then stepping into the role with Two Brain that's kind of grown over time. It just like logistically speaking, I couldn't take all of the sales meetings. So I started to train the team. So I built out like, hey, this is the process. We always had like the basic no sweat intro. And then over time we had like expanded to that because we were selling other things on the front end. And then I kind of stripped that away because I was like, hey, this is very process driven. It's a great spot for you to start if you don't have a sales process at all. Kind of the things that we've talked about in this conversation, like you can get a little bit, as you build your skill set, you can get a little bit deeper and really help your team more. And so I started to train the team. We would film things. They would watch that. We would do a lot of role plays together in a group. We would do like role plays one-on-one. Then I set up all my sales tracking information so I could see like, okay, how many leads do we have coming in? Like of those leads, how many are booking appointments? What's the set show close rate? And then starting to give feedback on those things as well. And then for the two people that I have closing for the gyms, they get paid commission. So they work the leads. They get a set rate per close, and it's structured as a tier. So they're incentivized to hit the next tier up. So like if they're at 9 close, or if they're at 10 closes, the 11th close triggers all of the previous 10 to be worth more money, incrementally more. Once they get to 15, same thing. If they hit the 16th one, it's worth more for all of them. So like they're going to be hungrier to make sure that each lead, because these are people that raised their hand and said, hey, I'm interested in the thing that you have. It's our duty as professionals to give good service and say, you reached out for this thing. And we also have to understand that these people are typically fearful. And so it might take 5 days of calling twice a day and shooting a text once a day and sending an email every other day to get that person. And it might not be this week. It might not be this month. It could be a few months down the road. But just remember, they reached out to you for a reason. Like I'm not cold calling, dialing in the white pages in the phone book. Like that's not how that works. So like somebody is interested in you. You have an obligation to give good service and follow through with that person. And so then you can kind of like monitor what your team is doing. And they're gonna service those people better if they're paid to do it.
Well, Matt, we're getting close to the time limit here. This has been great. Listeners, if you got some value out of this, be sure to leave a comment, let us know. We'll get Matt back on the show. He can peel back the curtain and show you as much as you'd like. And if you want a full breakdown of Matt's sales process and how he trains and how he thinks about sales, he's going to be speaking at the Two Brain Summit in Chicago on June 8th and 9th. There are honestly like a dozen tickets left. So by the time this airs, we might be sold out. But if we aren't, go to twobrainsummit.com and buy your ticket. We will be shutting down the sales page once we sell out, which will happen before the event. So if you are on the fence, consider this your final call. And I hope you got a lot of value out of this episode of Run a Profitable Gym. Thanks for watching, and we will catch you later this week.